this is a good segue to our next thing when we're talking about private property, because your point on private property is the anarcho-capitalist voluntarist perspective on the issue. It's, well, who owns the property? Oh, this is my body. Okay, well, I get to decide then what happens to this body because it's mine. and that one's yours, so I don't get to decide on what happens to that one. Really like kindergarten stuff, right? So yeah, this is there's so much going on with Google and YouTube and Facebook censorship in the news lately, especially with Veritas coming out with all the exposés and leaked documents and videos of insiders that's been coming out recently. There's a lot of news happening on this corporate censorship front right now. Tim Pool, blowing up on Joe Rogan's show, talking to the Twitter CEO. There's been so much happening. I keep starting to put together the outline for a video to update everybody on it for those that haven't been following the situation. But then another big thing happens. And so I'm like, okay, well, I got to wait for a lull to get to it. There's not a lull coming really right now. What's happening is that companies are outright bald-face censoring people, and for the first time being upfront about why, and that's the story. And so that's not the story. They're being upfront about it for the first time, and the response to that has been, okay, well, it's time to regulate. All of the commenters I've seen, except maybe Dave Rubin, I haven't listened to his most recent comments on it, but all of the recommendations, all the commentary, all the opinions from all the people that have any kind of following anywhere is like, okay, platform versus publisher, it's time to regulate. Like, if you want to censor people, if you want to have an opinion on, then you're not a platform, you're a publisher, and so it's time to regulate. You need to lose your platform immunity or whatever. And there's lawyers that are doing like 2-hour dissertations on YouTube law channels about the difference between platforms and publishers and the nuances of international law in relation to like the politics of the United States platform publisher dichotomy versus Canadian law. Like, it's just it is a fucking black hole, endless tube of nonsense that we're not getting. I'm not seeing enough voluntarist, anarcho-capitalist, principled commentary on. Eric July did a couple good videos on it, but that's it. That's all I've seen. And the solution to this entire like column of nonsense that's happening right now is it's private property. It's what you were saying about the vaccine. It's the exact same principle. We just apply it everywhere. That's kind of our shtick, actually. We take this principle of self-ownership and non-aggression and we apply it to everything. And what that results in right now is, guess what? Google owns the servers that the videos are on. That's it. Like, if you want to call it a platform or a publisher or a Oompa Loompa, it doesn't matter. It belongs to them. That's it. And so when they do this stuff, like we're getting these leaks where some emails were leaked. That's this particular story. There's 1,000 employees that work for Google created a petition to remove Breitbart.com from AdSense, to prevent them from using AdSense, which means they can't promote their content. They can't pay to have their ads show up on Google's ad platforms. And they can't make money on, like, let's say YouTube. They can't be monetized or anything like that. So basically a complete, disassociation from Google in terms of Breitbart. And, there's this internal petition. 1,000 people apparently that worked for Breitbart have signed this petition. They found what they consider to be homophobic, misogynistic, Islamophobic, anti-black content on Breitbart.com. And so they're going to disassociate. And so this is the latest controversy where people are now calling for regulation. Well, see, if they're going to regulate the content from Breitbart on Google's platforms, then they're not a platform anymore. They're a publisher. So you're going to regulate? So you're going to use the guns of government to literally force them to use their servers in the way that you want them to use their servers? That's immoral. You can't do that. You only get to control the property that you own. It's really simple. It's really, really simple. Did you have any thoughts on that before I continue this rant?
Yeah, I think where people are getting tangled up in this is the very real connections between corporate behemoths like Google and such, and state interests and government interests. You know, like with the whole the supposed CIA Facebook connection and stuff like that. But I think, as you point out, they're not addressing the foundation of the thing, which is, if you don't like Google, let's point out the connections to the state. Let's build something better. Let's stop giving them money, you know. But I think that's where I've seen a lot of even ANCAPs and voluntarists get tangled up in saying, well, Facebook's not actually 100% like a real free market private thing because of the connection. You know, the government's an octopus and it's got its tentacles and everything. But yeah, at the same time, you know, I don't know. The whole thing seems like an issue that is just missing a foundation, which is property. So who owns it? What is it? You know, okay, Google is connected with the state. Well, the state's immoral too. So why are we arguing about what they should or should not do? You know, based on nothing, no foundation, a foundation of property. So I don't know. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
I
agree with you in principle. And I agree with you that Google owns the servers. But I think what trips people up is the connections to the state for voluntarists. But I agree with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just kind of pondering why people are getting sucked into this.
I'd like to learn more about what the connections are. There was a video. Oh, I'm so bad with names. If I think of it, I'll mention it, but I can't remember right now. I saw a video recently that told the history of Silicon Valley. It was on an ANCAP channel, I believe. Corbett Report, maybe?
Oh, cool.
I think Corbett did a thing recently on it, and he kind of told the history of Silicon Valley and how it started with government defense contract grants or something like that, and that's kind of how the internet came to be. Yes, Corbett Report, Rika. Yes, and I would suggest going and watching that. I think it was a pretty good history of Silicon Valley, and how Facebook probably had some government involvement in its beginning, nefarious or otherwise. But I just wanted to make I want to learn more about the government, the concurrent, the contemporary government involvement in these companies. If the government is in some way subsidizing these companies, that a defense contract would be different. If they're getting paid to develop something for the government, that's not the government supporting the company. That's just bad business. That's business with the devil, so to speak. I don't think that gives me a claim to control their property. Does
right.
it? I need to think through that more.
Well, that's a tough one.
Yeah. So, but that aside, I wanted to bring it back to illustrate the private property thing. If I this channel, let's say I owned this channel and the servers and equipment that you were watching this channel, and I opened it up as a platform to other people to contribute, and some commies came along and started publishing videos to the Disenthrall platform, trying to convince people to become commies. And obviously, this is something that I vehemently disagree with. And would absolutely disconsent to my equipment, property, channel, platform, whatever you want to call it, being used for those purposes. To force these companies to allow space on their property for opinions that they not only disagree with, but 100% morally just abhor. It violates not only their consent, but also their conscience. It would tear me up inside if I was working to maintain property that was being used to spread communism. That would not just be a breach of my consent, it would be a breach of my property as well. It's kind of like being taxed, having my money stolen. Yes, that's already an offense, but then having that stolen money then used to bomb children, innocent children in other countries. That's now taking an offense. That's now taking what began as a crime, and that's also just twisting the knife into my morality. That's the worst thing you can do to somebody. Let me think. I'll say one of the worst fucking things I can think you can do to somebody is to take their property and use it in a way that is opposite to what they would want their property used for. Like that is just like the deepest, most intimate way to violate somebody's consent. There's somebody's existence. And so like to take Google's property and make them use it in a way that goes against their own principles, however dumb or retarded those principles may be, is immoral. It's wrong. You just can't do that. If Google's being a dumbass, then compete with Google. Get off of Google. Don't use Super Chat. Use let me pull it up again. Use our Streamlabs link, instead of Google. That's the answer. That's the point I wanted to make. It's like it's evil to force somebody to use their property in a way that violates their consent or their principles, right?
100%. I think what you're doing is important because, I think there are some people that have made some pretty conclusive arguments about these corporations being government embedded. But until you have to stick with the property principle the whole way. You know what I mean? You can't just guess and say, well, maybe Patrick's channel is involved with some bad stuff, so we need to take it over. And I think that's the difference between a principled person's way of thinking and someone who's a bit more, kind of wildly flailing in the sea of whatever, which is a lot of what these arguments are. Google should do this because I feel this way. They should do this because I feel this way. Well, who fucking owns it is the real thing. And then, then you can decide what actually should be done from a proprietarian perspective.
Yeah, you have to begin
I hear you.
You have to begin, exactly. I just wanted to echo what you just said. The default position is, I think they might be involved with the government, therefore we can control them. That's not where you start. You don't start at violently controlling people. You start at peacefully respecting their goddamn property. And then, if there's a case to be made for how they are violating your property, i.e. taking stolen money, the government steals your money and then they take it from the government. You have to make that case. You have to show that they're the aggressor before you can use the violence on them, I guess is the thing. So I guess this is an area I need to learn more about because I still have not yet seen evidence that would justify forcibly controlling Google to, make YouTube usable in a way that they disagree with. I mean, I think they're dumb. I think their ideas are not only dumb, I think they're dangerous. Like cultural Marxism is probably the most dangerous philosophical idea in existence right now. I think it's tearing
and
society
this is not
apart.
Conclusive, but
go ahead.
To my way of thinking, an information giant like this, knowing what I've researched and studied about the history of CIA and basically just governments across history, platforms like businesses like Google, platforms like Facebook that have, how many users does Facebook have? It's a good chunk of the world's population. If you were the CIA, you would be a dumbass not to be co-opting that immediately. And all kinds of stuff about this Libra coin coming out. But that said, like you said, I can't just assume that without conclusive evidence. And I think that's a big part of the problem here. As far as voluntarists go when they're talking about these kind of things, you can't just assume shit. It's the same with the vaccine argument. People saying, vaccines stopped in Japan 1994. No, they fucking didn't. And it makes all of us look stupid when you say that, without proving anything. So.
Yeah, the normies aren't even making that, at least the ANCAPs are trying, but the normies are just Facebook is behaving in a way which we don't like, control them, regulate them. It's normal.
Totally.
It's like the equivalent of me going to my neighbor and holding him at a gunpoint and saying, okay, this commie is going to sleep, in your bed tonight. And I'm sorry that you don't like that, but, First Amendment, it's not even an argument. Anyway.
Dude, it's all my feels.